Hey everybody, this is Caleb with On the Wrong Lead. In our latest Fast 5, we're going to look at how to handicap first-time starters. So the race I picked was Churchill Downs this Saturday, June 27th, race 4, because it has a lot of first-time starters. It's a maiden special weight race for 2-year-olds only, so none of these horses are eligible to be claimed. So we'll take a look and run through the race very quickly. There's 3 main pieces I'm thinking about when I'm handicapping first-time starters. The first is the trainer. How well does this trainer do with horses that are making their debut? Some trainers are known to have horses ready at first asking, whereas others like to bring them along a little bit more slowly. So I'm going to look through and try to see how these guys do with first-time starters. So David Fox seems to do respectably enough. A guy like Tom Amoss is a high percentage guy in almost every category, and sure enough, he does well with first-time starters, getting 23% winners. That number jumps up to 27% with horses that are making their first start in maiden special weight company. Then I get to a guy like Paul McEntee, who's an 11% trainer, which isn't bad, but only 2% with first-time starters. The number doesn't get much better if you restrict that to maiden special weight company. There's very rarely one single stat that'll make me toss a horse, but that's a number that I'm going to have a hard time getting around, especially when you look and see that you have a 4% jockey on board. I'm probably not going to be using this horse. This is the same trainer with a jockey who's over 23 this year. I'm probably not going to be using that horse. This is not a first-time starter. This horse has had a race already. It's Brad Cox and John Velasquez, which are strong connections. Dwayne Lucas, 0 for 78 with first-time starters, 0 for 68 debut, maiden special weight. Talamo is an okay jockey, so this is a horse that might be usable, but 0 for 78 is a tough one for me to get by. We'll have to come back. Then you have guys like Asmussen. They do very well, so I would mark them down as yes guys to watch for. I'm not sure who this trainer is, but he does not have much luck with first-time starters, and the jock has yet to get a win, so I'm probably not going to be using that horse. Then you have another Asmussen horse. It's worth including. You have Neil Howard, who only has 4% and 3% winners with first-time starters. Probably not. And then you have Dane Kubiski, and this horse has a race already, so we'll skip him. The next thing that we'll look at is going to be Pedigree. Mostly when I talk about Pedigree, I'm talking about the offspring of the sire, so the sons and daughters of the sire being the father. How often do they win their first race? So for Halcyon Digest, the sire is First Samurai, and right here on Brisnet, it'll tell me that his offspring win 9% of their first time racing. That's about average, so that's not something I'm really going to take super to heart. It's about a normal figure. Again, 12%, we're getting a little bit better. 10 to 12% is average to starting to get kind of good. Street Scent, 12% is fair. Okay, 15% for Into Mischief. He's known for getting a lot of early winners. That's a good number. So that's something that's going to make me look at this horse a little bit harder, especially when you couple it with the fact that it's with a guy who gets pretty good figures with first-time starters and maiden special weight with Steve Asmussen. So I would go through and kind of look at the horses that kind of jump off at me for either being very good, 15% or higher. 17% is quite good, but this is not a first-time starter, so don't want to get confused. The other thing I'd consider would be the dam's record, if the dam being the mom, if she was raced. What did she do? And if she's had any foals that would be brothers or sisters to the horse racing today, what did they do? So this dam was unplaced. She raced and didn't hit the board, and she's had no starters. So this is her first foal to race. Doesn't tell me anything. This dam was a winner. She's produced 5 starters, 2 of which have won, and 1 of which was a stakes winner. So that's interesting. I do like 2 out of 5 starters is not great, but 1 of them being a stakes winner is interesting. I've already kind of eliminated some of these horses based on the trainer. So this dam was unplaced, but she does have 2 starters of 3 winners. Something like this is what I'd be looking for. When a dam has 10 starters, they repeatedly breed to her. It kind of tells me she's probably kicked out some respectable racehorses, and from 10 starters, there's been 6 winners, including 3 stakes winners from Ellesmere. So she was also stakes placed in her own racing career, which is something interesting. So trainer stats are kind of bad, but the pedigree is a little bit interesting. So that might be one that I wouldn't totally discard based off of this number. The last piece to look at in first-time starter handicapping would be the workouts. So the 2 pieces to the workouts I'm looking for are time and frequency. So starting with time, I'm looking for roughly 12 seconds per furlong. Now, I don't put too much emphasis on time because some trainers like to work their horse fast and some don't. So you don't want to just look for fast times because some trainers may be really holding their horse back in the morning because that's their style and their method for training. So typically, something like a 101 is fine. A minute flat is pretty good. 48 and 2 is pretty strong. These are all pretty good numbers. For first-time starters, you really want to also see, in addition to respectable times, a workout every 7 to 10 days. So young, healthy, developing racehorses should be working out about every 7 to 10 days. So you can see here, June 20th to June 13th is about 7 days. June 13th to June 7th is 6 days. June 7th to May 30th is about 8 days. So this horse is working out about once every week, which is pretty good. It looks like he's being brought along well. And I would go through and just kind of make sure that there's no huge gaps. I don't see any huge gaps in the workouts for any of these horses that would kind of jump off the page and tell me something went wrong. But if you do see a 3 or 4 week gap in between works, without a race having occurred, obviously, then that might be a red flag that something may have gone wrong in the morning, which caused the horse to miss some workouts. The last thing I'll touch on is workout reports. If you have them, they can be useful. I'm not going to get into that here, but if you purchase them from DRF or anybody else, they can be a good tool to use for your handicapping, which will tell you basically someone's opinion of how a horse is working out in the morning. So someone who's a professional to go and take notes on a horse's performance in the morning. So just to recap, the main things I look at are trainer statistics with first-time starters, and you can refine that to maiden special weight company, dirt sprints, 2-year-olds, whatever criteria you feel is appropriate. But in general, first-time starters gives you a good picture. Pedigree information. So how often does the offspring of the sire win first out? And did the dam race? Did she win? And how many siblings does this horse have that have raced before? Did they win? Were they stakes winners? Did they win their first race? Those are all the kinds of things I'll be looking at. And lastly, workouts. I'll be looking for workouts that are in the ballpark of 12 seconds per furlong. I'm not going to lose sleep if it's 13 seconds here or something like that. But if I see a 40-second work for 3 furlongs with no explanations, sometimes that can be a bit of a concern. And the spacing between the workouts. So making sure they're working out once every 7 to 10 days leading up to a start is something that I generally like to see. That being said, there will be a follow-up to this that gets a little more into details, but for right now, we'll leave it at that. Feel free to PM me on Discord at Caleb or drop comments into the video here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.